Discover the untold story of Jack Greene, the Jolly Green giant of country music. From his humble beginnings in Depression-era Tennessee, where a childhood illness sparked his lifelong passion for guitar and song, to his rise as a grand ole Opry legend with chart-topping hits like There Goes My Everything and Statue of a Fool. This in-depth biography explores his apprenticeship with Ernest Tubb, groundbreaking CMA award sweeps, heartfelt duets with Jeannie Seely, and the poignant battle with Alzheimer's that marked his later years. Dive into the emotional highs and lows of a true icon whose voice captured the essence of heartbreak, resilience, and the American dream. Perfect for fans of classic country, music history, and inspiring life narratives. Subscribe for more tales from Nashville's golden era. Jack Henry Greene was born on January 7, 1930, to hardworking parents who embodied the Appalachian ethos of perseverance, faith, and quiet determination. His father, likely employed in one of Blount County's aluminum factories or as a farmhand, labored long hours to support the family, while his mother managed the household, sewing clothes from scraps and tending a vegetable garden to stretch their limited resources. Maryville, with its population hovering around 5,000, was a quintessential Southern town. Tree-lined streets, a central courthouse square, bustling with farmers' markets on weekends, and churches that served as social hubs for revivals and hymn-sings. The community was tight-knit, where neighbors helped one another during lean times, sharing harvests or offering a hand with chores. Music was woven into the fabric of life here. Barn dances featured local fiddlers, playing tunes passed down through generations, and church services rang with a cappella gospel songs that emphasized redemption and endurance. Jack's family, like many, tuned into the Opry broadcasts where the sounds of Jimmy Rogers yodeling or the Carter family's harmonies inspired young dreamers. From an early age, Jack showed a natural affinity for music, humming along to the radio and mimicking the strums he heard, though resources were scarce for formal lessons. A pivotal moment in Jack's childhood came at age 10, when a serious illness, likely rheumatic fever or pneumonia, ailments rampant in the pre-antibiotic era due to poor sanitation and limited medical access, confined him to bed for weeks, perhaps months. This period of isolation was terrifying for an energetic boy accustomed to roaming the hills, playing with siblings, or helping on the farm. The fear of long-term weakness or even death loomed large in a time when childhood mortality was still high. But his mother, a woman with her own quiet musical talents, perhaps inherited from family gatherings where relatives played banjos or mandolins, stepped in as both caregiver and teacher. She spent countless hours by his bedside, patiently guiding his small fingers across the strings of an old guitar, teaching basic chords like G, C, and D. These sessions were more than skill building. They were therapeutic acts of love, distracting him from pain and loneliness and instilling a sense of purpose. In a rare archived interview from the 1980s, preserved in the Country Music Foundation's oral history collection, Jack reflected deeply on this time. "Mom didn't just teach me to play. She showed me how music could lift you out of the darkest places. Those strings were my way back to the world, a bridge over the fear." As the nation edged toward World War II, with news of Pearl Harbor in 1941, bringing rationing enlistments and victory gardens, Jack's early years blended personal hardship with these broader uncertainties. The war effort transformed Maryville, with factories ramping up production and young men like his older relatives shipping off. But for Jack, recovering slowly, music became a constant companion. This foundation of Appalachian spirit, with its emphasis on storytelling through song, emotional honesty in lyrics, and the healing power of melody, would propel him toward a career that celebrated the very essence of human experience, turning personal vulnerabilities into universal anthems. Jack Greene's entry into the music world was modest and grassroots, mirroring the DIY ethos of country music in the mid-20th century, where talent often bubbled up from local radio stations and small-town venues rather than polished talent scouts. As a teenager in the late 1940s, amid the post-war economic boom that saw cars filling driveways and televisions entering homes, Jack secured his first professional gig as a disc jockey at WGAP, Maryville's local AM radio station. At just 16 or 17, he was already behind the microphone, his voice deep and resonant even in adolescence, introducing records by icons like Hank Williams, whose Lovesick Blues dominated airwaves, and Eddie Arnold, the smooth Tennessee plowboy with hits like Cattle Call. This role wasn't glamorous. It involved early morning shifts starting at dawn, dealing with finicky equipment that often crackled or failed, and a meager salary that might have been supplemented by odd jobs like delivering newspapers or working at a soda fountain. Yet, it ignited his passion for performance, allowing him to curate playlists that mixed emerging rockabilly with traditional country and occasionally slip in his own guitar strums during breaks. By age 18, in 1948, Jack had graduated to live shows, becoming a regular on the Tennessee Barn Dance at W. Knox in nearby Knoxville, a 30-mile drive over winding mountain roads. This program, modeled after the Grand Ole Opry and broadcast live, featured up-and-coming talents in a lively barn dance format, complete with square dancing callers, audience hoots, and impromptu jams. Jack performed covers of popular tunes like Williams' Your Cheatin' Heart or Acuff's Wabash Cannonball, honing his stage presence amid the electric energy of live radio, where mistakes were broadcast unedited and crowds fed off the raw enthusiasm. The 1950s brought adventure, growth, and a taste of the nomadic musician's life as America surged into prosperity with suburban expansion, interstate highways under construction, and the rise of television threatening radio's dominance. Jack relocated to Atlanta, Georgia, a burgeoning music hub with vibrant clubs along Peachtree Street, and radio stations like WGST pumping out country and rhythm and blues. There he formed his first band, the Peachtree Boys, in the early part of the decade, naming it after the city's famous avenue. For 8 years, from around 1950 to 1958, he juggled multiple roles: lead singer, delivering ballads with his deepening baritone; drummer, keeping steady rhythms on a basic kit; and guitarist, strumming acoustic leads. Life on the circuit was grueling. Endless gigs in smoky dives filled with cigarette haze and beer spills, late-night drives in beat-up vans along two-lane highways, and the constant hustle for bookings through word-of-mouth or shady promoters. Pay was inconsistent, often just tips or a share of the door, and the band faced the era's social tensions, including segregation in southern venues. Yet Jack thrived, his tall frame, already over 6 feet, commanding attention as he belted out emotional tunes, drawing influences from the era's blend of honky-tonk and emerging rockabilly from Elvis Presley, whose That's All Right electrified the airwaves in 1954. This period coincided with the Korean War, 1950 to 1953. And though Jack avoided frontline combat, he served a 2-year stint in the U.S. Army around 1951 to 1953, stationed domestically where he learned diesel mechanics, a practical skill that would later prove invaluable on the road, fixing broken-down tour buses amid tours. Returning to civilian life, he reformed his band as the Tennessee Mountain Boys upon moving back to Nashville in 1959. Music City was exploding with talent, home to legends like Patsy Cline recording Crazy and the emerging Nashville sound, pioneered by producers like Chet Atkins, which polished raw country with lush strings and choruses to appeal to broader, urban audiences. Jack immersed himself in this scene, playing in honky-tonks like Tootsie's Orchid Lounge, networking with songwriters, and dreaming of a big break. A fateful turning point arrived in 1961 as the civil rights movement gained momentum and President Kennedy's New Frontier promised progress. But for Jack, it was a local gig that changed everything. His Tennessee Mountain Boys opened for Ernest Tubb, the Texas troubadour, whose signature hit, Walking the Floor Over You, had defined honky-tonk since the 1940s. Tubb, a grizzled veteran with a no-nonsense style, was impressed by Jack's versatility, seamlessly switching from singing heartfelt verses to drumming solid beats while engaging rowdy crowds with charm. This led to an invitation to join Tubb's backing band, the Texas Troubadours, in 1962. This was no small opportunity. Tubb was a Grand Ole Opry staple since 1943, touring relentlessly across America and even overseas with a reputation for mentoring young talent. Jack's duties expanded beyond music. Leveraging his Army-acquired mechanic skills, he often repaired the tour bus, ensuring the show went on despite mechanical failures. In a lesser-known anecdote from Tubb's 1979 autobiography, The Texas Troubadour, Jack once fixed a broken axle in the dead of night during a brutal Midwest blizzard in 1963, using makeshift tools under flashlight beams, saving a sold-out performance in Chicago, and earning the band's eternal gratitude. He drummed with precision, played guitar and bass to fill out arrangements, sang harmonies on Tubbs classics like Slippin' Around, and emceed shows with his warm, booming voice, introducing acts and bantering with audiences. This apprenticeship lasted several years, providing financial stability, steady paychecks from tours, and invaluable exposure, performing in venues from dusty Texas dance halls to packed Northeastern theaters. Jack's deep voice shone on backups, adding depth to Tubbs' sets, and he occasionally took the spotlight for opening numbers, building confidence. The touring life immersed him in the realities of the road, long hauls and cramped buses, fan interactions that range from adoring to demanding, and the camaraderie of bandmates sharing stories over late-night diner coffee. It was during this time that Jack honed his professional persona, learning to balance showmanship with authenticity, setting the stage for his solo breakthrough. Jack Greene's transition to solo stardom was deliberate and methodical, built on the solid foundation of his Texas Troubadours experience. As the 1960s cultural revolution, Beatlemania, civil rights marches, and Vietnam escalation contrasted with country's traditional roots. By 1964, amid the British invasion dominating pop charts, Jack released his debut single, The Last Letter, a poignant cover of Rex Griffin's 1937 classic depicting a suicide note from a heartbroken lover, with lyrics like, "This is the last letter that I will write to you." Originally featured on one of Ernest Tubbs' live albums recorded at a rowdy honky-tonk, it garnered enough buzz, fans requesting it at shows, for Decca Records, Tubbs' label, to issue it as a single. Though it didn't chart highly, peaking outside the top 40, it showcased Jack's ability to infuse old standards with fresh, raw emotion, his baritone adding layers of despair and regret that resonated with listeners familiar with life's quieter pains. The following year, 1965, brought Don't You Ever Get Tired of Hurting Me, a soulful plea for reconciliation in a troubled relationship, written by Hank Cochran with lines like, "Don't you ever get tired of hurting me? You must think I look blind, for I know I can't see." Unfortunately, It coincided with Ray Price's more orchestrated version, which overshadowed Jack's simpler take and kept it off the charts, highlighting the competitive nature of Nashville's song-sharing culture. Undeterred, Jack continued performing with Tubb, but his mentor sensed untapped potential. In a pivotal conversation recounted in country music histories like Colin Escott's The Grand Ole Opry, The Making of an American Icon, Tubb pulled him aside after a show. "Son, I believe it's time to go. But if you can't make it, you can always come back and be a troubadour." This encouragement, blending fatherly advice with practical safety nets, was crucial, giving Jack the confidence to step out on his own amid an industry where failures were common. The breakthrough arrived in early 1966 with Ever Since My Baby Went Away, a mid-tempo lament about lingering heartbreak, peaking at number 37 on the country charts, a modest hit that signaled Decca's growing faith in him and tested the waters for radio play. It was a song that captured the era's themes of loss, perhaps echoing the societal upheavals, like the Vietnam draft pulling loved ones apart. Then later that year came the defining moment. There Goes My Everything. Written by Dallas Frazier during his own painful divorce, the song's lyrics, "There goes my only possession, there goes my everything," captured the universal ache of abandonment, with verses detailing the emptiness of a home stripped of love. Jack's interpretation was masterful. His voice, rich and steady like aged bourbon, conveyed quiet devastation without melodrama, allowing listeners to project their own sorrows. Released in October 1966 by Decca, it rocketed to number 1 on the Billboard country charts, holding the position for 7 consecutive weeks, a remarkable run, and crossing into pop territory, peaking at number 65 on the Hot 100, unusual for pure country at the time. This wasn't mere luck. It tapped into the era's shifting sounds, blending traditional twang with the smoother country-politan style, popularized by producers like Owen Bradley, who added subtle strings and backups to broaden appeal. The song's success propelled Jack to instant stardom, earning him a historic sweep at the inaugural Country Music Association (CMA) Awards in 1967, held in Nashville's Municipal Auditorium. Male Vocalist of the Year, beating out heavyweights like Buck Owens, Single of the Year, Album of the Year, for the LP There Goes My Everything, which featured lush arrangements of similar ballads, and Song of the Year. In an archived CMA interview from that night, preserved in the association's vaults, Jack reflected humbly amid the flashbulbs. Winning those awards, with folks like Buck Owens and Merle Haggard in the running, it was overwhelming, but it felt like validation for all the hard roads traveled, from Maryville radio to this stage. The nickname Jolly Green Giant emerged around this time, a playful nod to his imposing 6 feet 4 inches height, taller than most contemporaries, and the popular vegetable mascot from commercials, but it truly stuck because of his infectious on-stage warmth, approachable smile, and deep rumbling laugh that put audiences at ease. Jack's momentum continued unabated through the late 1960s, a period when country music grappled with counterculture influences while holding on to its core audience. In 1967, All the Time became another number 1 smash, dominating for 5 weeks with its theme of unwavering devotion. All the time, yes, darling, all the time, through the years, through smiles and tears. The song's steady waltz rhythm and Jack's sincere delivery made it a staple at weddings and dances. It was followed by What Locks the Door, which hit number 2, exploring emotional barriers in relationships with lyrics like What Locks the Door to the World You're Living In, an introspective piece that hinted at deeper psychological themes uncommon in country at the time. These songs solidified his style, heartfelt ballads delivered with unpretentious sincerity, avoiding the flashy production of some peers, and focusing on relatable human struggles. 1968 brought You Are My Treasure, a tender ode to cherished love that topped the charts for weeks, its melody evoking the warmth of a fireside chat, and Love Takes Care of Me, a top 5 hit emphasizing love's healing power amid personal doubts, peaking at number 4 and showcasing Jack's range in uplifting tunes. The next year, 1969, was equally triumphant as anti-war protests raged and Woodstock defined youth culture, but Jack's traditional sound provided comfort to older listeners. Until My Dreams Come True was a dreamy number 1 about persistent hope, with soaring choruses that built emotional crescendos, while Statue of a Fool became another chart topper, its poignant lyrics painting vivid regret. Name me a fool, and I'll build a statue of a fool and make it cry tears of rain. This song, often overlooked in casual retrospectives despite its enduring popularity, revealed Jack's knack for dramatic imagery, making listeners visualize the frozen pain of poor choices, much like a sculpture weathered by time. It was inspired by songwriter Jan Crutchfield's reflections on self-deception, and Jack's version added a layer of vulnerability, his voice cracking slightly on high notes for authenticity. That same year, Jack achieved a lifelong dream by joining the Grand Ole Opry, the pinnacle of country legitimacy since its 1925 inception. His induction on December 27, 1967, actually formalized in early 1968 but celebrated ongoing, was marked by a performance of There Goes My Everything at the historic Ryman Auditorium, broadcast nationwide on WSM radio, with the audience's thunderous applause echoing off the pew-like seats. For over 4 decades, he was a fixture there, performing hundreds of times. Estimates suggest over 1,000 appearances, and mentoring younger artists like Garth Brooks in the 1980s. A fun, lesser-known fact from Opry archives. In 1996, Jack introduced Kenny Chesney for his Opry debut, but accidentally called him Larry Chesney, a slip due to nerves or a mix-up with another name, which became a light-hearted anecdote in Chesney's 2004 memoir, Flip-Flop Summer, highlighting Jack's endearing human side. The Opry stage allowed Jack to connect directly with fans, where his gentle demeanor shone, signing autographs for hours after shows, sharing stories of his Maryville roots, and often dedicating songs to veterans or struggling families. The 1970s marked a shift toward collaboration and sustained success, as disco fever swept pop and country embraced a more outlaw edge, with artists like Waylon Jennings challenging Nashville's establishment. Jack teamed up with Jeannie Seely, a rising star known for her Grammy-winning Don't Touch Me in 1966, as both duet partners and touring companions starting in 1970. Their chemistry was electric. Seely's bright, soaring soprano complemented Jack's deep, grounding tones perfectly, creating harmonies that blended vulnerability and strength. Their first hit, Wish I Didn't Have to Miss You, peaked at number 2 in 1970, an upbeat track about the longing of separation on the road, with lyrics like Wish I Didn't Have to Miss You, but I do when you're away. It captured the irony of touring life, success bringing distance from loved ones. Other duets followed. Much Oblige in 1972. A playful thank you to love's obligations with a jaunty rhythm, and What in the World Has Gone Wrong with Our Love, also in 1972, pondering the erosion of relationships amid everyday stresses, reaching the top 20. Their live shows became legendary, drawing massive crowds to venues like the Las Vegas Strip or Midwestern fairs, with a mix of tight harmonies, witty banter, Jack teasing Jeannie's feisty personality, and solo spots that showcase their individual strengths. As one fan recalled in a 1973 concert review archived in Billboard magazine, Jack and Jeannie's stage presence was like watching old friends, funny, heartfelt, and always on point, turning a simple duet into a full evening of emotion. Solo-wise, Jack kept charting steadily. Lord, Is That Me in 1,970 question self-reflection, with a gospel-infused introspection, peaking at number 16. There's a Lot About a Woman a Man Don't Know in 1971, delved into gender mysteries with humorous yet poignant lyrics, hitting the top 20. And Satisfaction in 1973 offered a soulful take on fulfillment, drawing subtle influences from R&B crossovers. As Decca Records transitioned to MCA in the early 1970s, amid corporate mergers reshaping the industry, Jack adapted to the changes, scoring hits like I Need Somebody Bad in 1973, a desperate plea for companionship that resonated with the era's rising divorce rates, and It's Time to Cross That Bridge in 1974, about mustering courage to move on from pain, with a mid-tempo groove that encouraged dancing through tears. However, by mid-decade, as tastes shifted toward the raw, rebellious outlaw country epitomized by Willie Nelson's Red-Headed Stranger album in 1975 and Waylon Jennings' defiant anthems, Jack's polished traditional style saw diminishing returns on the charts. Minor hits followed in 1974 and 1975, like Sing for the Good Times and On the Way Home. But radio programmers favored edgier sounds, and MCA dropped him in 1976, a common fate for veteran artists in an industry increasingly youth-oriented and trend-driven. Undaunted, Jack signed with smaller independent labels, refusing to retire. The 1980s brought a brief revival on Frontline Records with Yours for the Taking, a romantic offer of commitment climbing to number 28 in 1980, his final top 40 entry, proving his voice remained timeless amid the urban cowboy craze sparked by John Travolta's film. The song's gentle melody and sincere lyrics harkened back to his roots, earning airplay on classic country stations. He dabbled with EMH and Step One Records, charting modestly with tracks like The Devil Was Alone in the Garden in 1982, A Cautionary Tale of Temptation, and If This Isn't Love in 1984, a heartfelt affirmation that scraped the lower charts. Performing remained his unwavering passion. He toured tirelessly through the Reagan era, playing state fairs, casinos, and veterans halls, often returning to the Opry for weekend slots where fans of all ages requested old favorites. In 2007, amid the Opry's move to its modern theater, he celebrated his 40th anniversary as a member with a special show featuring tributes from peers like Charlie Pride and surprise guests, a night filled with standing ovations and shared memories. Into the 2000s, as digital music revolutionized the industry with downloads and streaming challenging physical sales, Jack's output slowed, but retained its high quality and emotional depth. He recorded sporadically, focusing on passion projects rather than commercial hits, including duets like You Have Won My Heart and Stetson Cowboy. With emerging artist Santana Maria around 2005, though they didn't chart, these tracks blended his classic baritone with contemporary flair, appealing to niche fans. His final studio album, Precious Memories, Treasured Friends, released in 2010 on a small label, was a poignant collection of duets that served as a career bookend. It featured collaborations with legends like George Jones on reinterpretations of He Stopped Loving Her Today, where Jack's voice added a layer of weathered wisdom, and Lori Morgan on heartfelt ballads like Precious Memories, evoking gospel roots with harmonious choruses. The album blended nostalgia, covers of hymns and old standards, with fresh energy, receiving warm reviews in publications like American Songwriter for its authenticity. Health challenges emerged in the late 2000s. Alzheimer's disease, a progressive neurological disorder affecting memory and cognition, was diagnosed around 2008, slowly eroding the sharp recall that had defined his storytelling lyrics. Despite this, Jack continued performing until 2011, when confusion on stage and family concerns forced a quiet retirement, a stark contrast to his vibrant, decades-long career. On March 14, 2013, at age 83, he passed away peacefully at home in Nashville from complications of the disease, surrounded by loved ones. The Grand Ole Opry issued a statement calling it the end of an era in country music, and tributes poured in from fans, artists, and media alike, with radio stations playing marathons of his hits. Reflecting on Jack Greene's remarkable life, we see a man who transcended his roles as singer, performer, and icon to become a profound chronicler of the human spirit, capturing its highs and lows with unflinching honesty. From those bedside guitar lessons that sparked his lifelong passion amid childhood illness, to the final duets on Precious Memories, Treasured Friends that echoed his enduring legacy, he wove threads of pain and joy into an eternal tapestry of song. Rest easy, Jolly Green Giant. Your melodies continue to whisper enduring truths that resonate in quiet moments. Thanks for sharing this journey. May his story encourage you to embrace the songs that stir your soul, reminding us all of life's fragile, beautiful harmony.